Hello and welcome to UPSC Preparation Simplified, an initiative by Rao's IAS Study Circle where we try to actually solve the problems that you face. Today we are going to talk about a small yet very impactful topic, and that topic is science and technology. Now when I talk about this topic, in this topic, if you look at the syllabus of prelims, it mentions general science and technology, and in mains it gives a detailed explanation. So what is the meaning of this syllabus, how we can interpret it? Today we are going to talk to Mr Akshay Vrat sir, who is a faculty of science and technology at Rao's IAS Study Circle. He has years of experience. So sir, welcome on board.
Thank you, sir.
I hope that this winter of Delhi is treating you well.
Yeah. I'm used to. I'm born and brought up in Delhi.
So wonderful, sir. So when we talk about this science and technology, the science and technology is important from the perspective of prelims. It is also important from the perspective of mains. But when you look at the syllabus of prelims, it mentions general science and technology, which is something which we see in the NCERT books of class 9th and 10th.
Sure.
And when you look into the questions are from biotechnology, from robotics, from nanotechnology, from space and defense. So what is the right way to interpret the syllabus so that the journey of prelims for science and technology and journey of mains is simplified?
So it's a very good question that you have asked, and it's a very common problem that many student faces. I believe that when the subject of science is considered, the subject itself does not have any fixed boundaries. The subject itself is very wide. It covers physics, chemistry, biology, and for the matter of civil services, it covers a wide portion of technology as well. Now, when it comes to defining the syllabus for us, we know that in the preliminary exam, UPSC has already mentioned general science, which in itself we consider NCERT as the benchmark there. But it also becomes very cumbersome, very difficult to define what is to be learned, what is to be left. So their mains syllabus of UPSC, it gives us some idea about the subject here. It gives us some idea about what are the important aspects that UPSC may consider in the subject, not only in mains but also in prelims. And when it defines the topics like defense technology, when it defines the topic like space technology, nuclear energy, nanotechnology for that matter, which was inducted in 2013 only, and robotics and artificial intelligence, it gives us an idea that these are the areas where UPSC may be hovering around, maybe revolving around in not only mains but also in prelims exam. Mm-hmm. So when we consider the preparation of UPSC, I normally suggest students that you consider general science as your base. But the objective is to learn the areas which are precisely mentioned in the mains. In that way, we can holistically cover the entire subject of science.
So actually the syllabus of mains gives the broad boundaries for the syllabus of prelims as well.
Yes.
And if we focus, if we actually study with prelims and both mains simultaneously, it will become a very impactful way to study it.
True, sir.
Wonderful, sir. Now, one thing that actually bothers even me at one point of time is that there is lack of standard material for science and technology to prepare. So what is the way? Should we rely entirely on newspaper, or what should be our approach?
So that's very correct. So that's a very common problem. When I was also preparing, the same problem I also faced. Like there is a dearth of standard books. We consider NCERT as the base, but of course the kind of questions then we see, they are sometimes inspired by current affairs, they are sometimes inspired by the basic application of the technology, which NCERT doesn't offer. So that is where the student or anybody would have to struggle. Although as I am associated with the institution since a long time, we have seen how we have been able to prepare our material, and because we are concentrating only on civil services, that's why our material happens to be very much precise and very much concise, targeted only towards the civil service exam. So we come up with these Compass magazines every year, annual edition for prelims and mains, and on top of that we come up with DNS and the Focus magazine, on a monthly basis. We here as an institution, we have a perspective that we should target the audience only from the context of UPSC. So in that aspect, Compass magazine and Compass, I would not call it a magazine anymore, because it's an entire compilation of general science and also current affairs at the same time. So Compass along with Focus, it gives us a very good idea of a good study material that students can concentrate on, students can rely on for the entire UPSC preparation.
Now, one thing which actually I want to ask on behalf of the students who come from humanities background, even I am from one of those, and we are always scared of the science and technology aspect, to what extent we can actually understand. And somewhere we also, when we study, we also focus on the aspects like physics, like chemistry, like biology. So people who are from the humanities background, what should they do to develop grasp on this particular concept? Because they're not that educated in that sense.
So again, when it comes to science, see, first of all, science is it is our fundamental duty also to work on our scientific temper. So constitutionally also one should be well versed with some scientific principles, one should be well versed with some scientific approach. So scientific approach is firstly there in every subject. There is no subject that doesn't follow the idea of reason, that doesn't follow the idea of scientific approach. So every person from whichever background they come from, they have some idea about scientific approach. Now precisely when you talk about the subject science, there it gets a little scary for non-science students. But I would normally believe that UPSC keeps a very good bottom line, or they maintain a niche so that everyone is comfortable in the subject, and probably from every field. Like I come from science background, but when I was studying economics, I found the questions of economics, you needed a little help, you needed a little effort, but you can still manage, because economics also follow a very scientific approach. At the same time, I tell this to humanities students also, that don't be under this impression that you need to become an expert in physics, chemistry or biology for science. I normally tell students that keep a very simple, straightforward approach. Our purpose of knowing science is to find solutions to the problems that we normally face. And UPSC also, when they dig questions, even in prelims and mains, their idea is mostly to understand whether the person is well aware about the realities of the world. So when you talk about the awareness, the overall idea of awareness, science plays an important role in that. So for any student that comes from humanities background, they don't have to dig deeper into the concept. They only have to learn things so that they are well aware citizens, they are well aware part of the society as such. So if you keep that approach, science becomes very handy, very simple for anyone. Sir.
And we can see from the questions which were there in this year paper. So
exactly.
There was a question pressure cooker. There is a question on measuring the distance.
Exactly.
So these questions are something which is commonsensical as well to an extent, and that we see very regularly.
Exactly, sir. Common sense, it prevails a lot in science. In fact, the approach that I also follow, I normally refrain from using specific jargons. I normally refrain from getting into deeper concepts and numericals. The simple idea is that whatever we observe, we should have some understanding of it, right? Why these things are happening. So as you rightly mentioned, that there was a question on pressure cooker, there was a question on standard units, constants. So these are the things which are very basic things. We are seeing these things happening around us. We know these things already. It is just that once we know the reason why these things are being used, why these things are being referred, science and technology is just that's it. Sir.
Now, sir, I'm going to ask you a question which is very different. Now, when we look into the science and technology aspect from the perspective of prelims, so it is knowing more and more about a specific thing. So it's very information intensive. But mains is a different ball game. So what is your suggestion about how to prepare for mains? Because science and technology for prelims is like knowing specifics. But mains is about integrating it with various other dimensions like science and with economy, science with environment. So what is the right approach to handle science and technology from the perspective of mains?
True, sir. As you mentioned, sir, mains is a multidimensional game, sir. So in that case, every subject that you prepare, you do not, no questions in mains come solely for science, no question will come solely for economics or solely for environment. And science in particular, they have a good relation, good dimensions can be opened up in the subject of economics, in the subject of ecology, and to a certain extent in the subject of geography as well. Or even when it comes to internal security, disaster management, you can have scientific approaches or dimensions there. Now, particularly for the subject of science, when questions are asked, they are usually revolving around the issues which we face in the scientific arena. There are sometimes the questions are asked regarding certain applications of scientific disciplines or some technology, or sometimes they ask about India's preparedness, India's contribution in such certain areas of science. So when it comes to the mains exam, you can consider the same syllabus that we follow in prelims, but the approach it widens a little. So I normally tell students that whenever you are trying to attempt a science question, don't just be under this impression that you only have to write science. Because science itself have a direct impact on economy. Like just to give you a small example, electric vehicles are now making, they are being, I normally say that they are being reintroduced because the first vehicle was actually an electric car that was ever built. So now they are being reintroduced and now people are getting serious about it. So as we know that if we want to, as an economy, if we want to prepare for electric vehicles, we should know the technicalities so that we can prepare the basic manufacturing hub for electric vehicles. And at the same time, we have to also understand the per capita income of India, that whether or what kind of electric vehicles will suit a country like ours. So in that way, science becomes a subject where a little bit of understanding of science, but you can supplement it with a lot of other dimensions of other subjects. So writing a mains answer in science becomes very easy, and it is the only way where students can express that how deeply they can go into multiple subjects, multiple dimensions in one answer itself. So it's a very simple approach when you follow the subject of science in that case.
Now there is one special request that we are getting right now. There are people who are going to appear for the mains in next few weeks. So what is your suggestion for them? How should they actually orient themselves in the last 2 to 3 weeks about science and technology?
So like last 2 years itself, because we have been facing this COVID pandemic, so I honestly believe that UPSC, when they would ask questions on science this time, there is a very high chance that they may consider the pandemic, they may consider the shift, the change in lifestyle that we have seen during the pandemic. So it may not be asked only from the areas of biotechnology, but at the same time you can expect that there have been certain technologies that have been able to help us during this COVID pandemic time. Like we at Rouse, we were able to streamline our classes so quickly, because of the technology that we had at our disposal. So this is one area where I think students should be concentrating on, that how science has impacted us in the last 2 years. And again, as I've been saying, that it's a very commonsensical, very subtle approach. So simply follow that, how the lives have been changed in the last 2 years. But when it comes to certain issues which have become quite popular, like artificial intelligence is already an issue which has, I believe that UPSC have not explored it to that extent, although there was a question on essay, on artificial intelligence. Then there are certain areas like blockchains, which UPSC have not asked, and it's a part of Industry 4.2 at the same time. Then from the aspect of biotechnology, like we have seen biotechnology making a mark, making contribution in the areas of agriculture, in the area of medical science, but UPSC have not asked about the risk related to biotechnology. And many people, as they speculate that COVID pandemic, vaccines, a lot of people have shown some skepticism towards these things.
Of course.
So biotechnology can help us in solving those skepticism as well. Biotechnological research and such things. So there can be a possibility that UPSC should ask questions somewhere related to risk associated to these things, and also risk associated to artificial intelligence at the same time. As there are opportunities, there are risks also involved. And blockchains, robotics to a certain extent related to artificial intelligence, nanotechnology and nano pollution is something which I believe that now UPSC should not ignore for some time either. So these are the areas I think which students should be concentrating on. Otherwise, again, as UPSC has followed, as I've said already, the questions are mostly multidimensional. Even if there is a question on science, you will definitely try to dig a deeper approach, try to give a multidisciplinary answer from economics, from ecology, because science never affects only science. When it affects people, it affects the economy, it affects the ecology, it affects the other dimensions of our lifestyle at the same time.
I think the last point will definitely have great value for people who are paying for mains, because this is part of GS paper 3.
Exactly.
So when we look into this dimension of GS paper 3, so science and technology gets influenced from various factors as well.
True.
And these factors must also be incorporated when writing the answers.
Exactly.
So I hope that you have got enough clarity in terms of how to handle science and technology from the perspective of prelims as well as for mains, and all those people who are going to appear for mains this year. From the entire team of Rouse IAS, we wish you all the very best. Now, if you are willing to know more, stay tuned for more videos in the time to come. Take care. All the best.